people always say, well, nobody can do it as good as the owner. I get that. I struggle with that as well. It comes down to your training from the first day that even the interview process. You can start grooming them to your core values, your mission statement, things like that. And then their first day on the job, they're training. And, yes, they'll maybe never do 100% of the work that the owner can do. But if one can do 70%, now you hire two, now they'll do 140%. And I could never do 140%. So that kind of mindset really has set me up to success to get to where we are.
Welcome to the Roll Up and Roll Out podcast. Sit down with blue-collar business owners and inspired entrepreneurs to get the industry insights from the leaders that grow our local communities and learn how to scale your business. Regardless of GED, these people know how to GSD. Here is your host, Paul Childers. Let's get to work.
Welcome back to another episode of Roll Up, Roll Out. My name is Paul Childers, and I am the host. Today, we have the pleasure to talk to Randy Tunstall, the owner of Outdoor Independence. Randy, just introduce yourself real quick and tell me what got you into this business.
Sure. Well, thanks, Paul, for having me today. We're a landscaping business, and what started me in this business was just simple. It was simple to start, and it was a good way to make some money. I had no interest in working in corporate America, and I knew that with a push mower and a shovel, I could go out and make $1, and the rest was history. Literally, starting with the American dream, starting with nothing, and building it to something.
And so did you start doing this kind of stuff while you were still in high school, or is this something that you just kind of did after you left high school? Was it kind of like you were mowing yards and stuff, while you were growing up, and then it just evolved, or like how did that come about?
Sure. So yes, I did. I started a small, high school kid operation doing the neighbors, driveways for snow removal, and then evolved into some lawn care. Just because I like to have some extra cash on hand, and then I left for the military, so I gave that up. And when I came home, I never really forgot about doing that and how easy, in an essence, it was to kind of get rolling with the business. And so one thing led to another. I finally bought a home, so I had a spot to have equipment, and had some neighbors that weren't just apartment neighbors, and just started putting my feelers out there, asking, and doing $20 cuts, things like that. A mower in the back of my Ford car, and or Ford Focus, sorry. And yeah, just started putting grit in my teeth, and trying anything I could.
That's an interesting picture, a guy going from house to house with a mower out of the back of a car. Yeah, don't see that too often, but it beats walking, right? So,
Absolutely, absolutely.
but that just shows that, if you have a little bit of creativity and a will to do something, you can absolutely figure out ways to do it. So I appreciate that aspect of it. So it went from like lawn mowing to now are you guys doing, landscaping, hardscape type stuff? And like, how did that transition happen? And was there a learning curve when you started doing that stuff?
Oh, absolutely. So I did work for a larger landscaping company in our area, Vanda Hayes Landscaping, and I was on a hardscape crew there. That was after I came out from the army, and before I started my own thing, and I kind of got introduced to hardscaping. And truthfully told, I never really liked hardscaping. It was just there's a lot to it, a lot of overhead in terms of equipment, training. You have to have your ducks in a row with your guys, and having a foreman that really knows construction and permits and all that stuff. So, truth be told, today we are more of a maintenance company. We do steer away from hardscape. For that, we see a niche in the softscaping space, where there's plenty of companies that'll come in and do a patio for a couple thousand, $100,000 kitchen, or put in a pool. But then they leave on the table the maintenance aspect. These same customers that pay these big dollars for these beautiful backyards, they're great for like 3 or 4 months, but then they go through like a fall or a spring, and they don't really know how to do with them. And that's where we come in. And the other side to this is we have reoccurring revenue with the maintenance side of things, rather than do a $10,000 backyard, and then you're like kind of like, well, then what? No, we know exactly what we're doing every week. And with that, maintenance leads to so many other things. and we try to be a all-inclusive company. So if we're gonna do your shrubs, we wanna do your lawn, we wanna do your fertilizing, all of that, and all that revenue, the design build doesn't capture because they just do the one thing and then they leave and then they go to the next customer.
Yep. So did you guys incorporate then, like, you guys got, I'm assuming, fertilizer tanks and stuff that you go and you do weed spray and all that kind of stuff? Because you're absolutely right. I think people, they misconceptualize some of that stuff all the time, where they just hear landscaping and they just assume, it's the retaining walls and it's the patios and it's the pools. But really, landscaping in general is everything that is outside of your house and making sure that it looks like. And nobody likes to go out and pick weeds and rake leaves and make stuff look nice once it's done. So that's really cool that you guys, filled that niche. Um, when you were starting to, formalize this, thinking about your business growth, how important was it for you to figure out a way to get consistent, residual income coming in, monthly pay, yearly pay, whatever it looked like? How important was that for you when you built your business?
Oh, it's extremely important. It's what's built, what we have today. Um, and that's, 12 full-time staff out in the field, administrative, full-time and maintenance in our shop, dealing with our trucks and things like that. We wouldn't be able to support any of that and having the equipment we do without having the reoccurring revenue, right? Card on file, set contract that includes, the services that we're doing through the year, for 6 months, whatever that looks like. And it's an evolving thing, right? You find what works for some customers or what works for commercial versus residential. Residentials, they like the idea of set payments, but then when it's a dry season and they realize, hey, they're not really coming to mow, they sometimes complain. Where like commercials, they don't care. They just want it done. They want the set budget number, and they're none the wiser as long as the work is being done.
Yeah.
So there's give and take on both ends, and like I said, it's an evolving door. Some customers love to set it and forget it, and sometimes that's our niche, or mostly that's our niche is the set it and forget it customers, the people that don't want to worry about it. And our motto is taking the stress out of landscaping, and that's where we come in at.
Yeah, I'm that type of person where with the company that I have local, it's a definitely, I like to just pay them, and then the only time I know that they've been here is when I get the flag in the yard, right? That they just sprayed or whatever. And like I
Yep.
appreciate that aspect of it, because I just there's between my kids, my job, all that kind of like there's just so much other stuff going on that, like, I like a nice looking yard, but I don't always have the joy in maintaining it myself all the time. So that's a good, that's a good thing to have, and people like convenience. How long did it take you to, you said you had 12 employees that were out on the road, out on the jobs, and then you got some internal and some stuff in the shop. Like, how long did it take you to get, to a point where you could support that level of employees?
So we are going into our fourth year in business, which is a pretty fast trajectory. Completely understand. We had to cut some corners to get there. I hired my first full time employee in my second year in business. I did my first year by myself, just boots on the ground, just trying to make some money, right? And did all right that way. But I realized that I could only grow so much. I can only do so much work. And how do I duplicate myself? Where can I get off the truck, and have someone do it? And I always hear along people always say, "Well, nobody can do it as good as the owner." I get that. I struggle with that as well. It comes down to your training from the first day that even the interview process. You can start grooming them to your core values, your mission statement, things like that. And then their first day on the job, they're training. And, yes, they'll maybe never do 100% of the work that the owner can do. But if one can do 70%, now you hire two, now they'll do 140%, and I could never do 140%. So that kind of mindset really has set me up to success to get to where we are. It's pretty fast, and we're working on our trainings actively to make sure, hey, where are we missing? What are the things we're always having to fix on the job sites or go back and do where we're losing our money? Um, so the training is huge, but it took us about last year we really started to scale and get multiple crews going on. It was a lot of late nights, and still a lot of headaches, but it's worth it when you see other employees or the teammates you bring in. If you treat them like human beings, they'll do anything for you, and it's amazing to see. I don't have to worry about if there's a snowfall calling my guys at 3 a.m. because they understand what we're after. They get it's the job. I don't have to feel bad when I ask them to stay late because they understand. But then when they ask me to go home early, I understand because we're treating them like humans. So
Yep. There's definitely a give and take that exists between an employer and employees that I think gets overlooked a lot, especially when you kind of start getting into like more corporate size, companies that we almost forget about the human element of life, which is sometimes stuff just happens. Sometimes we just have bad days and just need to go and not be at work, right? Like, I remember a boss telling me when I was in sales, he's like, "Here, look," he's like, "if you're having just an absolutely crappy day and your attitude is crap," he's like, "I would rather you go home early, grab your golf clubs or whatever, grab a fishing pole, and go do whatever you need to do to just de-stress, and then come back tomorrow 100% refreshed and just revitalized versus me trying to keep you here, only making your attitude worse, and then it just snowballs into a week of depression or anger or whatever, right? So that aspect is really cool that you do that. Was that something that when you started the business that you wanted to make sure that was incorporated into your culture, like that family
yes.
type feeling?
Yes, 100%. Because I know as a human, me personally, when I was an employee, everybody had that, probably had a boss that just treated them like they were just a number, this small. And I knew I always dreamed when I start a business, I will not treat people that way because I don't want to be treated that way. And I've found you get a little bit more with, honey, right? Than you do anything else. And so uh, yeah, it does bite us a little bit at times. People will take advantage of things, of situations, but for the most part, you get your core group of people that really care and about the organization, and they weed those people out, those bad apples. And you know what? You're going to go through that. You're always going to be hiring, always going to be firing. It is what it is. But you find those core group, those people that want to be here, and that's what makes the difference.
Yeah. Do you think that's an attitude difference between, I would say, like the boomer generation versus like this Gen X millennial generation of owners of just we've seen how it used to be and we worked for a lot of those bosses and I kind of have the same view you do is when I start hiring people, I want them to feel like they're comfortable, bringing issues to me and not like they're going to get, chewed out for calling in sick or chewed out because their kid had a sick day and they had to you know, do you sense that kind of same like shift that's happening now with like some of these younger business owners taking over that we just are like, nah, we don't want to do it that way. That way doesn't work.
100%. I see that a lot, and I see that owner to owner type relationships with other businesses. The ones that have been around for a while will I'll go. I'm not afraid to talk to them, but they have that attitude like I don't need you. I've been doing this for years, and it's like no, you're leaving some money on the table, or we could work together. This and that. No big deal. They'll shove you off to the side before they even hear you out, and it's kinda interesting, and I know that the changing of the guard is happening. They don't see it, and that's fine. And I don't have it all figured out either. But, eventually there's gonna be a time where they hang it up and we're strong and we're here, and that's gonna be the new standard. All I know is right now, the last 4 years, it's worked really well with me, treating people like humans and having a good, culture, letting the bad apples get weeded out naturally. And the rest is proof in the pudding, I guess you'd say.
Yep. Speaking of changing of the guards, as some of that stuff starts to shift and some of these, either current players or maybe bigger players in markets that you want to expand into are shifting outward and to exit. Is that something that you've been kind of looking at building relationships with a few of them strategically with, a potential to just merge and acquire them and, just take over instead of like starting wholly fresh in like a new market? Is that kind of the way you're thinking with growth is through mergers and acquisitions, or are you thinking of just doing it organically the way you have been?
Little bit of both. I don't think you could be extremely successful just one way and doing it. Doing organic, yes, is successful. Doing your own word of mouth, this and that, acquiring customers, door knocking. Yes, there is a portion of that that has merit and weight. But I think also acquiring other businesses that are established that, he had a run of his employees and he's the last one is the owner and he just wants to hang it up because he doesn't want to hire another and be in it for another 5 years. We actually bought a company out last year with that. A guy just wanted to retire and walk away, so we were able to take on. It wasn't a big clientele list; it was only 16 clients, but those 16 clients were, of the affluent neighborhood, and it was actually 10 houses that are right next to each other. And we literally drive our mowers across the lawn, and we don't have to load up all day. And these houses are right on the lake. They're multi-million-dollar homes. We do everything there. These people don't own a hedge trimmer or anything. So it's been a pretty cool thing for us. And you get in with those type of neighborhoods, they always know somebody, at their tea time or coffee time, whatever. And so but to answer your question, I could see us, doing more of the merging and acquisitions in the future. Maybe of even bigger scale. Maybe instead of 16, it's 100 clients, right? And I'm not against that as long as it makes sense financially and they're priced right and all that good stuff. But
Yeah. The cool part I think that's kind of coming is the more organic that you can nurture those types of relationships, the friendlier the deals can be because what I think a lot of these older business owners are realizing is that they built a job in a lot of cases. Some of them didn't, but for the most part, they built a job. And because of that, their exit plan really isn't what they were hoping it could be. So I've been seeing a lot of business owners that are up and coming. I don't want to say taking advantage of it, but actually working a deal out with those owners that is beneficial for both parties. Whereas if you go to a business broker and try to sell your company, you get what you get, and it's usually not a lot. So I think that is something that is going to become really prominent. You were you were kind of hinting a little bit earlier about the difference between the older generation and our generation and the collaboration between business owners. How has that been something that you've utilized with, other businesses in your area that are, similar minded, growth focused, and just really looking to help each other and help the customer?
it's everything that is what has made us today. At the end of the day, it's not what you know till you know. I've heard that since I was, real little, and that's really paid dividends. Not afraid to, talk to other businesses and be like, hey, these are my services, 4, 5, 6, whatever you're good at. What do you do? And or hey, I want to stay out of that area, but you stay out of my area, kind of relationship. And not anything official, but more of a handshake and having a beer and talking about, hey, this is what I want to do, this is where I want to stay, what can we do together? It has been huge. And I work very closely with 5 or 6 different businesses that are either equal in size, maybe a little bigger, maybe a little smaller, but together we cover a lot of area in our local neighborhoods, or cities and towns, just because we're a little strategic that way. And we see the bigger players, they don't necessarily play that way, and they keep to their own. And yeah, they come into our neighborhoods, but it's like, I have 50 lawns right here. I know you don't have anything like that here, because we see their crews in and out, right? So that's been really huge for us to be able to, and we talk a lot about, hey, maybe we should all get together and have a, big open table conversation. And okay, you have this area, you have this area, and you know each other, but what about the southern side or something like that? So
Yeah, but connecting and bringing in other people of value, I think, is something that is almost a superpower for business owners once they figure out how to truly use that. I mean, we're always going to have our competition because if we didn't have competition, we wouldn't have anything that would push us forward. And I know the common saying in like entrepreneurship is like, I don't have any competitors. I just compete with myself. And like, that's bullshit. Like, we've got competitors. We've got to figure out ways to get creative and, do better than they are. But at the same time, like, sometimes it's all right to collaborate with your competitor and just be like, hey man, like, what are you seeing out there? What are you doing? And just, understand you're both going to be there, but how can we become better because of it? Because all you're doing at this point is just making a better name for everybody.
yep.
So
And you're raising the industry too, in the lawn care industry, especially a lot of younger guys we see come into the industry, love it, but we need the new blood too. But in the same time, if we work together with someone local, you also know, like, you hopefully are asking the right questions about pricing, and you know that, okay, I should be in this category for pricing, and then that way we all elevate our surroundings and our customers to that, and they don't constantly be in the mindset of, oh, I can just get someone cheaper because the price was raised. They know then that the level that they need to be at. And that was something I strive for early in business. Was my first year, was I knew was my building year, and then after that I'm like, okay, I need to adjust my pricing, and I like doubled pricings like immediately because I knew that I couldn't be just the chuck in the truck or the guy on the Ford Focus with the mower anymore. And there's a certain price that demands of nicer equipment and stuff like that. So I was doing all of that, right? Getting my insurance in order, getting my billing in order, right equipment, truck, looking a little professional. So yeah, I couldn't come out of the gate with all that. I had to start somewhere. But the quicker you get out of that phase, the quicker you elevate, your surroundings and your market for what you guys are asking for lawns or snow or whatever we're doing.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point. But just a little bit of time we have left. The one last question I want to ask you is, uh, what, what is your exit strategy for the company? Is this something you're wanting to work until you retire, or is this something where you've got like a 10-year out plan? What are you looking at from a owner standpoint to maximize the benefits of growing this business?
Great question, Paul. I asked myself that maybe more than others. I don't truthfully know. I can't say I'm gonna do this till I'm 60, and I can't say that I'm gonna sell it in a year. I really don't know, but I do know that I started outdoor independence, to create independence from the work life balance, right? And so the name doesn't say lawn care, doesn't say landscaping because I can pivot it and take it wherever I need to or want to, whether that is a selling tangible item that is separate from Randy or take it into a different market, assuming, if something were to crash or burn in the landscaping industry. So truthfully, I don't have the answer. I would like to say that I'm not going to work when I'm 60 and I'm retired sitting on a beach somewhere. Um, but I can't say I'm looking to sell it just yet. I got a lot of runway left, and I'm excited for what I can do with my team. We've done this in 4 years. I want to see where I'm at in 8. I think the sky's the limit as long as you have the willpower to get there.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I think most entrepreneurs, I think we almost daydream about retirement, but all of us know inherently that like there really is no such thing as retirement. Like I tell my wife all the time, I'm like, yeah, when I'm older, I still see myself being involved in, different things. You see a lot of old entrepreneurs that got out of the business and now they're consultants or they're board members for different companies or they're, involved with this local nonprofit or that. And I think it just internally, we just are programmed a little different where we've always got to be involved and actively doing stuff. So I always like to answer that question because I think it's interesting. Everybody's answer is pretty similar. It's like, I don't really know, but I don't know that I'll ever like not be doing anything. So I get bored.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I'd be bored, and I think my wife would go nuts if I was sitting at home, It'd be one of those things. I'd be probably yelling at the neighborhood kid for mowing crooked lawns or something, it just is what it is. But yeah, maybe in 5 years I have a better answer, but for right now, I'm just happy with the growth we've had and I'll look forward to more.
And that's what's important, man. No, I appreciate having you on and thanks for giving your time today.
Absolutely. Thank you.